Oh, hello there, and welcome to the recording of a brand new episode of Search Marketing Scoop. This is going to be episode 2 of season 2, but we'll get going with a proper introduction fairly soon in the next 3 or 4 minutes or so. I just want to give people an opportunity to join us. Hopefully, we will get a few live viewers start to join us and watch us live, because it's always good to have a little bit of interaction, a little bit of conversation going on here. You may have listened or watched many episodes before of Search Marketing Scoop. If you have done, you'll be aware that there's been a little bit of a change to the format in the last few weeks. Instead of just having a couple of SEO stories, a couple of paid search stories, we've morphed the show into focusing on individual topics for each episode. We've still got a bit of a start with the latest news going on, more the latest digital marketing news now rather than actually the latest search marketing news. But as well as that, we are focusing on an individual topic for different shows. So this particular show, we're delving into SEO, and we happen to be focusing in on the one major topic that has happened this year, which is Google killing Google Plus. We'd imagine that quite a few of you aren't too surprised that that's the particular topic that we're going to cover here. But anyway, we've got a few visitors, a few live viewers starting to trickle in. It's great to have you here. If you've just joined us and you're watching us live, howdy, how are you doing today? Where in the world are you today? Where do you happen to be? Are you in the States? Are you in the UK? Are you somewhere else? I happen to be in Portugal myself today, but wherever you are, it's great to have you on board. So say hi in the chat, say where you're from, and perhaps you can also share us a news story that is of particular interest to you this week. If it's not Google Plus, if it's something else, we've got Delana Morse from Fort Worth, Texas. We've got Matt Demers from Long Beach, California. We've got William Tuthau. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that too much, William. From, is it Cali, California? I assume Cali is short for. All from the States so far. Have we got people from anywhere else in the world? We've got Simon Cox, mostly listening because I am meant to be working probably, Simon. I don't know. Hopefully you can work at the same time anyway. Texas and California, but that's an Semrush person. I thought there was someone commenting that having a bit of an issue is not knowing what state they happen to be in. We've got Ed S from Essex. Simon Cox lives in England, shares Mr. Semrush. We've got someone from Singapore, Nate. Welcome indeed from Singapore. What time is it in Singapore? It must be something o'clock in the morning, just about. It must be after midnight. What time is it with you, Nate? Thank you for joining us at whatever time that happens to be. Thank you for everyone that happens to be watching live. We've got a growing number, a growing tribe watching us live now. So it's good just to give you a few minutes to join us before we start the proper conversation going on, the actual podcast recording going on. We've got Teresa from the UK, biking home and listening. Wowzers. Hopefully you're not biking home and watching. That would be a little bit scary, Teresa. Nate, it's midnight in Singapore. Well, yeah, thank you so much. We'll try not to go on for any longer than about 4 hours, Nate, but make sure you watch us to the end of the show. So I reckon that's just about time to do the proper podcast recording. Enough of the initial ramblings before too many viewers start dropping off and wondering what on earth is being discussed here. I will click on my intro music. Now, you're not actually going to hear the intro music this time because I'm mobile and my system doesn't allow for me to divert that to everyone who's listening or watching on YouTube. So that doesn't matter. If you really want to hear that, you can subscribe to the audio podcast, of course. Search for Search Marketing Scoop on iTunes. It's called Marketing Scoop now, but I think if you search for Search Marketing Scoop, that's probably the best phrase to search for at the moment. But anyway, I will start the official podcast introduction. Just get to the right bit in my notes here and start this introduction. Here we go. What does Google killing Google Plus mean to you as a marketer? Broadcasting live in the Semrush YouTube channel, this is Season 2, episode 2 of Marketing Scoop, the SEO Rush show that brings together the top industry peeps to discuss the current digital marketing headlines and delve into why they matter to you. Hi, I'm your host, David Bain, and for season 2 of The Scoop, I'm also pleased to be joined by a co-host who is a world-renowned chocolate judge, a UK, EU, USA, and MENA Search Awards judge, an international speaker and trainer, and the founder of Decabit Consultancy. Welcome to The Scoop, Judith Lewis.
Thank you very much. I also judged the Semrush Awards. There you go. All of them.
I just couldn't fit it all into the intro, Judith. You know, there's so much going on.
I'm just judgmental. That's what it is.
Oh, there we go. Hashtag everyone. Let's now meet today's guests, though. And first up, a music man who's deeply rooted in SEO. He's a digital marketing strategist and the founder of Fleek Marketing. Welcome to The Scoop, Jonny Ross.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Jonny. And next, a supreme leader with a big, giant head. They keep on publishing these Twitter bios, and I keep on reading them out. You know, and
I'll take it.
He's a digital marketer, an SEO, a speaker, and the founder of Top Hat Rank. Welcome, Arsen Rabinovich.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Arsen. Thanks for joining us there. So, as the show title alluded to, this episode we're focusing on one key topic: Google killing Google+. Jonny, did it really deserve to die?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on the show today. No, let's carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really quiet in there, wasn't it? It was great when it first came. Using that +1 button and being able to add Google authorship. There were so many things that they put in place for the SEO community, and it worked. You could get your author image on Google's homepage, all sorts of stuff, but it just never took off as somewhere that was sociable. And so it's good to see that actually it's gone, because it was just wasting people's time, I think. So,
Arsen, what went wrong? Why did it start off in such a positive, promising fashion, but it just tailed off to nothing?
I don't know. I was actually looking at Google Trends for Google Plus as an entity, and there was a huge spike when it started, and then it just dropped back down and was plateaued with like a fainting heartbeat up until the announcement that they're going to take it down, and it spiked up again, right? I don't know why it didn't take off. It was. I feel like they tried to take on Facebook way too hard.
Judith, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I was going to say absolutely, yeah. They tried to take on Facebook, but Google has a long and proud, shall we say, tradition of taking on other people's products and it not quite running, like their Second Life attempt, which I thought was fun. And it was years worth of development, and it just died a death, much like poor Google Pluses. But I think we had this telegraphed some time ago, a year and a half or so. Jonny, do you remember seeing something about them killing this off?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's been talked about for a long time, and it's come of no surprise. It's come out with this news of they've been hacked as well, though, hasn't it? So it's trying to really understand. I think that they've obviously really concerned about, we don't want to be the next Facebook, thingamajig Analytica. What is it? Cambridge Analytica. We don't want that name. So how can we really squash this quickly? Let's just close it down. And it's like, we've been meaning to for ages anyway. Let's just close it. So I think they've sort of been forced in a way, but rightly so.
I do miss those little pictures of myself in the search results next to my chocolate blogs. Absolutely. I have to admit.
Was it them who said that they got breached, or somebody else leaked the story? I don't recall.
They said recently that they got breached in, I think it was March of this year.
Mm-hmm.
They only said that over the last week or so, and I think they were going to wait for an appropriate time to actually share that, or at least. Was there not some kind of story going about to say that or an internal memo to say that they didn't really want to share the initial story?
Yeah.
Definitely. I think if you're going to bring out bad news, it's going to come out at some point, and you want to control the message. But we were talking about the recent ructions in Google search algorithm, and I said jokingly, obviously it's because of Google Plus dying. Now we all have to move our spam bots to Twitter. But that's me and my spammy ways. And I'm not implying anything by saying this, but Arsen, we were talking about this beforehand.
Throw me under the bus.
putting you on the spot. How do you feel about Google Plus closing its doors? Do you feel like it was using its social signals, or do you feel that Google itself and its algorithm uses any social signals at all?
Well, just like we were talking earlier, I think Twitter would be the likely social network for Google to look at. But Google Plus did put in a lot of work into trying to at least get us to think that +1 button and publisher markup is going to help us with rankings, and everybody went after it. Even though I think there was studies done, right, by some people who said it was working, and then other people came out and said, no, it wasn't working, but everybody still did it.
Or was it anyone apart from SEOs that were doing it?
Wasn't Google Plus only SEOs?
It was just us, marketing nerds. My mom wasn't even there. No, my mom's all over Facebook. She even looks at Twitter, but she just never got into Google Plus. She's like my bellwether of whether or not it's a valid social network. When she gets Snapchat, we know it's for the bin.
Is there a move that that they're going to try and turn Google Maps into some kind of social network? I don't know if you've seen the integration with Spotify recently. So you can play Spotify whilst you're doing navigating. I guess that's to go up against some of the other sat navs that are far better than Google Maps. But is there something in this that they're trying, because you can put posts on your business page, can't you, as well? So it concerns me that they're trying to move that way.
Maybe that's the part of the data breach they don't want us to know about, is that it actually exposed all of our movement data as well. And they thought, well, you can't +1 locations on maps, so let's just ditch Google Plus and move full swing into something else.
Simon Cox is saying in the chat, Google Plus needed to be put down a couple of years ago, but he said he loved the circles and he'd like to see that used elsewhere. I'd even forgotten about that, to be honest with you.
The circles were actually, so just like Judith was saying, my mom went to Google Plus before she went to Facebook because of the circles, because she was able to control who sees what. And I think Google Plus did it right as compared to how we're handling Facebook right now, where you can amplify content, or not even amplify, show content to specific people, and you can create these spheres or these circles and drop content in there. And that's what we were doing with our baby pictures and everything else, so that our family can see it and we have one place to share it.
Arsen, is there a space now for a brand new social network, if you want to call it that, to come in there and offer these kind of functionalities that may appeal to people who are disenfranchised with Facebook?
It depends on the demo. I don't think the younger crowd really cares. I think they all just went to Insta stories and Snapchat, and we saw somewhat like a quote unquote exodus from Facebook of the younger generation, and they went to Snapchat, and they're more about from what it's either broadcasting to everyone or sharing privately between each other, right? And again, I'm not like a social media expert. But I feel like certain functionalities of Google Plus were appealing to the older demo.
Interesting. So the circles were appealing to the older demo, done poorly on Facebook, but very attractive. And maybe that's one lesson Facebook can take away from Google Plus now, is to just get those circles working so that we can all enjoy them in our Facebook environment, where we all seem to have moved to.
And I think the integration with Gmail was also very important for that, for the older demo, because it was easier. You didn't have to log into another platform. It was all there for you.
That's true. It's keeping you inside of that ecosystem, and that's something that Facebook also want to do, is to try to make Facebook our interface. Jonny, I feel like we've been ignoring you in your beautiful pink room a little bit. I do miss authorship, and I was just looking at the lovely picture behind you and thinking how perfect that would be as my icon. But unfortunately, one of the things about Google was it didn't let you use any sort of pseudonym, and that caused a lot of problems amongst security people that I knew. What are your feelings around that? Is it possibly what led to a lower adoption of Google Plus, or do you think that it's irrelevant? Nobody was going to go there but marketers.
Yeah, I think the adoption for authorship was brilliant, and I think it worked. It was very clear to see. You did an action, and it worked. What it lacked, though, was the desire to go there and engage with anyone or talk to anyone. That was the fundamental issue, which they brought the value, but you didn't have to do anything to get that value, if you see what I mean. It was just like, here's authorship, have it. But you didn't really have to do anything to get it. So I think really they just need to stay away from social networks and focus on what they're good at, and think about take us on a new journey with search, because search, whilst there's been some big changes, there's not been any massive fundamental changes to search, and for me, I'd like to see a bit of progress on how we search, really, and that's what they're experts at.
Yeah, maybe it was just done primarily as a data gathering exercise, rather than actually a real focus on the user and providing outstanding user experience. Arsen nodding away there, and sorry, just before we go to Arsen, I just want to say to audio podcast listeners, us talking about Jonny's pink room earlier on is why you need to watch us live and watch the video version as well. So Arsen, you were nodding away there. Was that one of the reasons why it failed? It wasn't user-centric?
Yeah. Right away when they first came out, at least for me, it was like, oh God, Google now wants our all of our data, like the rest of our data now. Wasn't this also something to help populate the social graph at one point, right? They were talking about Google Plus, right? But it's just like, there's tons of information in there, right? Because we organize those circles, we put people in those circles, we created relationships, we built a knowledge graph for them to just collect all that information, right? We mapped ourselves as entities between each other, who's connected to who, what's the relationship, right? But the authorship markup part is interesting because that was something that was used before, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong on this, before the schema same as markup for a persona, which right now, properly used, and you have, a Wikipedia entry or something like that, you can get the knowledge card with it, and you can optimize your knowledge card with it. Before, we relied on, and again, I think, correct, this was some time ago, I think when the knowledge cards came out, certain people on Google Plus Google Plus was being pushed into those knowledge cards. I might be wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right with that.
Yeah. So now I think at least that part is now covered by this same as markup, where you can get your information and show, oh, here's the rest of here's where I blog, and here's my social profiles, here's a link to my Wikipedia, here's a link to my, right? Everything that we did for the publisher markup is now something that's done through schema. And I think it's for persona only, right?
So we've created ourselves as entities then, and we're feeding this information to Google. Google absorbs it and just classifies each of us as nothing more than an entity. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, have you explored the Knowledge Graph API through Google's? I think they have a portal where you can actually search for your name, and it returns like an entity ID, right? The ID that Google assigned to you and that follows you everywhere, right? Yeah.
Yes,
creepy.
I should print out a badge that actually has my ID on it and a little bicycle so that I can join the village. For those of you who don't know The Prisoner, which is an old UK TV series, The Prisoner was all about being a number and merely an entity and not an actual person, which I hope we all are here. But with Google Plus, I feel like it was mainly adopted by marketers and not as adopted by the mass market, shall I say, in the way that Facebook was. And it was really targeted at marketers with what it did. Obviously, the circles are super important, but it did feel like it was aimed purely at those of us who were working in the marketing community. Jonny, what was your feeling about that?
Yeah, I was always surprised though that it wasn't just marketers, because that's what I've got in my head. But then I do loads and loads of talks, loads of workshops, and I always ask the question. Well, if you went back a few years, I don't ask it today. Who's on Google Plus? And I was always quite surprised that there would always be maybe one or two people in the audience that was their go-to platform, and they weren't in marketing. They were, it was a broad range. So I think it did attract some people. But as we've said, it's just not the masses. And interesting about the data it's collected there. I hadn't really fully thought about the circles data, and that was about personalized search. That was about if you're searching for a pizza restaurant, and some of your friends have been to that restaurant before and liked it and whatever else, the idea was to then show you that pizza restaurant. So I get that. But obviously they don't have that. That can change. The trouble with that data is it can change quite quickly, because we can change social circles, our friendship groups can change quite quickly, and so that's probably like really old data now as well. So I'm not sure how reliable it would be. But
Car Hindle, guest number 23, is saying I'm not a number. Okay, so Arsen, we obviously know now that Google feels that it's getting enough information from other places. So where else is it getting information from with regards to new content that's being published, social interactions? And what should SEOs be doing to ensure that their content and interactions are being discovered and coming up in the right places?
I mean, I can only speculate. I don't know where Google's getting their stuff from. But just like we said, I think Twitter would be the likely candidate for Google to start at least collecting. Well, they're showing Twitter cards, right? Is that what they're calling them? Twitter cards in search results, right? And they're being pushed up into above the fold, right under, right above the results, or under ads, I think. So certain marketers who know what they're doing can definitely game that, right? If you want to hit those top lanes. I see Judith is smiling. I know she's probably testing something in that department already. But as far as like social signals, I mean, like Judith said, I think it's too easy to manipulate that. And I mean, we've tried all kinds of things back in the day, not doing it now.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Know what I mean?
Hashtag not a hacker. But we try to manipulate those signals, and in certain verticals, in certain niches, they definitely work. At least worked back in the day. I can't speak for now. I mean, Google's collecting data from everywhere. If we're talking what knowledge graph collects, it's the usuals, right? The Wikidata, Wikipedia collects information from Google My Business, or GMB right now. Remember when Google Plus took over that whole entire shebang for a little bit? Remember when it was Google Plus My Business or something like that? Or Google Plus Business, right? Or Google Plus Local. Sorry, Google Plus Local. That's what it was called. And
places. It had so many names.
Yeah. So but Google, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say what SEO should be doing right now. It's with the volatility of the current ecosystem, it's hard to say anything.
I think with regard to manipulating Twitter, from my understanding, Again, it's a bit of speculation, but I think my understanding is that Google is looking at is more interested in verified accounts, accounts that have over 1 million followers, and tweets that have over 1,000 likes. Now, I think you can manipulate some of that, but to be a verified account with over 1 million followers, I'm guessing, Judith, it's not quite that easy to achieve 1 million followers.
Is it still possible to get a verified account now as well?
I think it is still possible to get a verified account. Purchasing 1 million followers, I think, if you're caught at it and you buy really low quality followers, then you're definitely going to have problems. But don't do as we're saying, of course. Don't spam, kids. Just say no.
But my understanding is that that's what's coming up in the Twitter cards. That's what that's the
not
sort of
always.
accounts that they're but that's always the accounts that they're interested in.
Yeah. And we were saying earlier that it's very easy to game the system and make stuff look organic. And even without a verified account, there are ways to make it look purely organic. And there are sellers who pop up on my systems far too often, far too frequently, selling high quality Twitter followers, high quality Instagram followers, et cetera, et cetera. Google Plus, no one has hit me up to sell me anything for quite a while. It's been a long time. So they've clearly stopped bothering monetizing that, and they're monetizing Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook quite heavily.
Do we think Google has any insight in Snapchat?
Snapchat's a closed system, is it not? So
I think so. So
that's not going to be something that's going to result in a search result coming up. So if I was a spammer who was spamming social signals for evil and not for good, of course, I wouldn't be interested in Snapchat. I'd focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Instagram's probably the easiest to game right now. Hashtag not a spammer? Question mark. But also Twitter is still very easy to game. It's less straightforward to game than it used to be, which is what makes it a little bit more effort, which is why a lot of the spammers are on Instagram. But yeah, Google Plus was just, I was spammed the other day through Google Plus, and I was really surprised because I'd totally forgotten about Google Plus up to that point, because Hangouts has been separated from Google Plus for so long. And it was 2 or 3 years ago when they said that they were doing away with Google Plus, that they separated Hangouts out as a product, because they said, it is something that is heavily used by people. And of course they want to spy on our conversations. Hashtag not at all.
100% ethical.
Do as I say, not as I do. Don't spam, kids. Just say no. Build up authentic, verified, legit accounts. Don't buy. Especially don't buy a Fiverr, no matter what you do. Genuinely just say no to Fiverr. And especially if you're buying anything on Google Plus, because you're just wasting your money. But seriously, are any of us worried about the kind of data that was breached in this Google Plus breach? Because I know we've been commenting about, what it means for marketers and could the algorithm wobble be because of this? But what about the actual data that was retrieved? Because obviously if we had circles and we created entities out of ourselves, all of a sudden you can easily socially engineer any sort of attack, any penetration attack with anyone in that system. So are we worried?
I believe it was 500,000 accounts that were affected, and I'm not clear as to the extent of the data that was released. Does anyone know?
I mean, they're saying that it wasn't enough to make a big deal about it. So
I'd like to be the judge of that.
Didn't make a big deal about it.
Well, of course they're saying
Let's just release all the data and we can check for ourselves.
There you go.
I was one of the Facebook people, so I'm now quite aware of how delicate and dangerous any data on the web is. Not that I exposed a lot, unless you count all those early years, but we don't talk about those anymore.
Well, folks, I reckon that just about takes us up towards the end of this week's discussion. A little bit of unusual, different discussion, but it was good. It was fun. But we still have our actionable tips towards the end here. So this is a tip that isn't necessarily related to what we've been discussing so far. It could be something where the guest has been just focusing on that particular area. So Jonny first, what's your actionable tip, sir?
Yeah, we briefly talked about schema earlier, and it's for me, it's still rising, and it's about trying to take over featured snippets, voice search, thinking about voice search and how to get into that. And so for me, it's about using as much schema as possible. Job posting I've got a number of recruitment clients, and that's a massive growth area with Google Jobs. So schema is my actionable takeaway.
Superb. And you can find Jonny over at fleek.marketing. Jonny, how's the .marketing domain going for you, by the way?
It's good. I always get asked the question, so is that .co.uk or .com at the end? And I'm like, no.
And
people just don't get it.
You after the 100th time?
So yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's if you're in marketing, you've got to be ahead of the game a bit, haven't you? So yeah, I'm on Twitter as well at Jonny Ross if you're looking for me.
Superb stuff. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Arsen, what is your actionable tip?
Very similar to Jonny's. I've been doing a lot of talking about knowledge graph and entities lately, and I feel like the more we're getting into voice search and devices that are not your smartphone or your laptop, smart speakers, I think that aspect of entity-based retrieval is becoming super important. Regardless whether you're a brand or a person, really understanding what your assets are, digital assets, and understanding how they can be mapped towards you and optimizing them will benefit you in the future.
And Arsen's a typical traditional .com chap. You can find him over at tophatrank.com. So thanks for joining us, Arsen.
Thank you.
And of course, we've had Judith on today as our co-host. Judith, what jumped out at you today from our conversation that we had?
I think and looking at social signals as a ranking factor was an interesting suggestion that we were batting about during and before the discussion as well. So what are we thinking about as marketers with regards to how we're servicing our customers in social, and whether or not that helps us in rankings? I think it's very important.
Yeah, it's intriguing, and whether or not people even have to be on our sites to send those signals as well. So I guess we can carry on that conversation in future episodes. You can find Judith over at decapit.com. Judith, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, I've been your host, David Bain. You can also find me over at digitalmarketingradio.com. We will be recording the next episode, Season 2, Episode 3 of The Scoop at the same time, same place, the Semrush YouTube channel on Wednesday, the 17th of October in 1 week's time, when my guests are scheduled to be Garrett Moon from CoSchedule and Ross Tavendale from Type A Media. In the meantime, thanks not only to Jonny, Arsen, and Judith for this episode, but also to you for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the audio podcast. Just head over to searchmarketingscoop.com and find the link there to your preferred Apple or Android flavor of podcatcher. If you're already a Marketing Scoop audio podcast subscriber, tell us what you think. A rating and review inside your podcast app would be very much appreciated. But until next time, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.